definitions of it. The first definition, we're not talking about court judgments today. So the second one is, a misfortune, right? Or divine judgment, the final judgment. That's a spiritual topic. We're actually not talking about that today either. That's another day. That's part 2 of the series. The last 2 are the ones we're talking about. So one is something we do, and the other is something we have. So having good judgment, that's our ability to make good decisions, to make sensible decisions, to make decisions that make sense, to make decisions that are going to produce the outcome that you actually want. Because how many of us actually make a decision and we do something and it doesn't produce what we actually wanted? That happens to us quite frequently, which is part of why we're in the condition we're in. And the last one is where we get into trouble, right? It's the having an opinion or a conclusion that is usually not based in reason or research or even information. Sometimes we just make snap judgments. But this is what we're going to talk about today. But first, I think it's important to hear, from, what do the spirits say about this kind of judgment, right? And what we can do. So the first thing we're told, this is from Elizabeth to France, this is from the gospel. And she says, do not judge. I mean, can't make it any plainer there. 3 words, do not judge. We got very simple guidance. Do not judge, my dear friends, for the judgment that you render will be more severely applied to you. And you, we, me, I, have need of indulgence for the sins you, we, me, I continually commit. I'm changing the pronouns so that I'm not talking to you all as if I'm exempt. I'm not I don't get a pass here, right? I'm not exempt from any of this. And so this is, 1862, what is that, 1962, that's like almost 200 years ago. What, 150, I don't know, my math is not great right now, and it's still timely, right? It's still really timely. So it's pretty clear that we know we're not supposed to do it. We know what we need instead. We need the indulgence that comes from not judging, but we do it anyway. So let's talk about it. Since we're all in this judgment boat together, let's see, hey sweetie, let's see what we can learn about this together. So the first question I thought about is, well, when we judge, somebody is the judger and somebody else is the judged, right? So who are we judging? And I think the real question is, who don't we judge? Like, who's exempt from who we judge? No one, right? We judge our friends. People we call friends, we judge, sometimes more harshly than anybody. We judge our family, more harshly than we judge our friends oftentimes, right? Even though we're born into our families for regenerative purposes, right? We say what?
The blood right.
The blood right. Oh, right, the blood right to judge more thoroughly. Yeah, right. That's what I tell myself too. Right? We're family here, we can be honest. And we also judge leaders, right? We judge leaders of organizations, of centers, of states, of cities, of countries. We have all sorts of judgments about how people lead without ever wondering, like, what must it be like for those leaders to be in those situations? What are the forces and what are the energies and what are the decisions they have to make? And then, for some strange reason, we judge people we don't even know. We sit and observe, for those of us that like to people watch, right? How many like to people watch? Sit in a cafe, love it, just love to watch people. What do we do while we're watching those? A host of opinions, right? And people that we don't even know. And so, this kind of begs the question, if we are inherently good people, and we're not mean, I don't think any of us are mean, like intentionally trying to be like harmful. Okay, Raphael's looking at me like that. He's like, oh, I don't know. Well, what we have here is some honesty, some visual honesty that the rest of us just might be hiding. So let's just hold some grace there. But why do we do this? I wanted to know, because I don't think some of us may have some challenges with integrity, but in general, I'd like to think we're good people, right? We're inherently good people. We're designed to be loving people. This is who we're, so why would we judge? Like, for what purpose? So before looking at the spiritual, I kind of wanted to do like a little bit of research to see, and I found some interesting research in Psychology Today, which is a magazine, a periodical that contains a lot of research about psychology, which is a study. Psychology is not a science. Sorry, any psychologists. Anything that ends in ology is a study. So psychology is the study of the mind, the way the mind works. So their research says that our brains are wired to make automatic judgments about others' behavior, so friends, family, right, leaders, people we don't know, so that we can move through the world without spending too much time or energy understanding everything we see. So what this is saying is we're lazy. This is saying we're lazy thinkers. And if anyone has ever studied behavioral economics, there's a behavioral economist named Kahneman. So Kahneman has this theory about the fast brain and the slow brain, right? And so this is subsidizing, or this is substantiating, that's the word. This is substantiating Kahneman's theory of behavioral economics, the fast mind and the slow mind. So the fast mind is what keeps us alive, right? The fast mind is designed to scan for threats, look for the wild animal, kill it if it's trying to kill you or your family, right? Or fight or flight, right? Or run away. But because we're taking in so much data at any given moment, our brain is processing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of bytes of data, right? Because the brain's like a little computer, or like a big computer in a little package. So at some point, it has to sift and sort and decide what's important. What in my environment is important enough for me to pay attention to? And what sort of attention will I pay? And how long will I spend paying attention? And this is telling us now that when it comes to judgments, that's not someplace we pay attention, right? It's not someplace we pay attention. So it breaks down a little bit of the types of judgments that we have. So one of the common judgments that, say what? You're familiar with this, right? Is attributions, right? So these are the thoughts that we have about others that help us make sense of why people do the things that we do. Now, first of all, wouldn't our time be better spent thinking about why we do what we do? If we think about our evolution, if I study why you do what you do, how is that really going to help my soul evolve? Not so much. But we do this. I mean, we all do it. So it helps us make sense of why people do the things that they do. And they answer questions like, well, why did they do that? If someone is rude, or in our opinion, rude, because not everything that we decide is rude is actually rude. So we're going to park that for a minute. So according to Psychology Today, there's two kinds of attributions. And so the first one is this kind of judgment about a person's character. Here's where it gets slippery. I have no way of knowing your character. I am not inside your soul to know what sort of morality or integrity you have. This is not something you can just see on the surface, right? And when we make this attribution, we're making the assumption that this person is doing what they're doing because of their personality. For example, if someone's acting poorly, treating us unkindly, we think it's because they're impatient or because they're unkind. So we attribute the behavior to the person's character instead of making a separation. There's this person who's a good person, and then they have behavior maybe not so good. But the person's good. We know that takes time. We don't take the time, right? Because we are doing it without spending too much time or energy thinking about it, right? So we make these personality attributions, and we do it habitually. And research says we do it all day, every day. Yes, I said it. All day, every day. So this is an important topic for all of us, right? And I remember I said we, I'm in it. And so the other attribution is situational. That's when we say, they're doing this because of a situation, right? They may have been short or impatient with us because they're tired or they're overworked. So this is a kinder, right? So you can see this is probably a little bit more of an evolved way. It takes a little time. We can't do this rapidly. We have to say, maybe, so-and-so just did something. So we have a stimulus. Then we have a choice how we're going to respond, right? I think it was Viktor Frankl that said in between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our ability to choose. And what we choose determines our growth. So we can't say, so-and-so made me do something. Or if you have children, maybe you've heard your children say, my sister's making me so mad. And my kids hate it when I said, so you have no power at all? Like, they can just control you. Because in that space, that space is gone. You just, and they, of course, they hate that, right? Nor do I like hearing that either. But if there's this space for us to choose, we could choose situational attribution. We could, if we wanted to. And I just want to show of hands. How many have done this before? You've done situational attribution. You've seen someone act poorly and you say, oh, that's probably because a situation, right? Some of us have done this, right? It's not that hard if we take the time. It's not like the knee-jerk reaction to do that. We actually have to stop, pause, enter that space of stimulus response, make the choice. And by the way, Viktor Frankl, for those of you that don't know, he was a concentration camp survivor. So he was tortured for decades in a concentration camp. And when he was released, he formed a very popular form of psychology, and I don't remember the name right now, but he's the father of that form of psychology, and he's famous for this quote. So this is a kinder way to do it. But what happens is we end up with some mishaps, right? Because what I saw in the research is that we tend to overestimate personality and underestimate the situation, right? We're more convinced on character assassination than we are of the kindness and grace. It says maybe something's going on with that person, right? Maybe something might be happening. And we do this especially with people that we don't know very well, which, interestingly enough, are the largest group of people that we judge, as if that's helpful at all. So what can we do? I mean, this is a problem, right? And this is a problem that I'm struggling with, because the more that I have taken the time to kind of step back and observe my thinking, I feel like I'm in a nonstop state of judgment. Yes?
In Spiritism, we talk about a lot about intuition, follow your intuition, pay attention to intuition, listen to your mentors. What is the difference between being judged a situation or being judgmental or be following your intuition?
So I would like to think if it's intuition from our mentor, it's always guiding us towards love. It's guiding us towards kindness. If we have intuition that's guiding us towards anything but love and kindness, I would question where that's coming from. That to me is always the filter. But if someone has a different idea, I'm certainly open to hearing that. That's always what the filter I use, because I got all sorts of stuff happening in my brain that I got to figure out. Is that intuition? Is that coming from a good place? If it's driving me to love, that's how I know to trust it. Yeah, question.
I just answering you. I think that intuition is more directed to yourself. For example, you meet somebody and your intuition tells you, do not get involved. But your intuition is not going to tell you, do not get involved because he's a thief, he's a liar, he's this, he's that. When you get into that point, then the intuition is done, and that's where the judgment starts. Usually, intuition is much more guided to yourself.
Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I love that. This is why I love being in this space, because I always learn something too. The minute you admit you don't know something very well, like you open yourself to receive. So thank you.
I have to just add one thing here. That's from Pompano Beach. It's not from me.
From who?
Pompano Beach. He's a psychologist and spiritist.
Okay.
Right? And he's brilliant. It's very, very good.
Anything in English, or is it all?
No, you'll find many translations. He's Brazilian, despite his name.
Mm-hmm. But there's English translations?
Yeah. He's very, very good. He says that we always have to pay attention when he gives his spiritist lectures about judgment, that Jesus never said, do not judge other people. Jesus said, do not judge, period. And that should include ourselves. Because that's one of the worst things that we can do to ourselves is to judge ourselves.
Yeah.
Because either we're going to come out with a false, superior feeling, or a feeling of guilty or inferiority or something like that. None of them is good for you.
That's right.
So he gets a lot of attention to that. To always include in Jesus' speech, do not judge, period. Do not judge others.
That's right. This like Elizabeth DeFrance said, right? Do not judge. He didn't say do not judge those you know, those you don't know. French said don't judge. So that's good to know that that's directly from Jesus too. So these attribution mishaps happen, right? We are overestimating character. We're underestimating situations. What can we do? So the first thing is, and it seems so simple, it's just a caring attitude. Because in order to stop and take the time, right? Because we're doing this quickly, that's what the research says. So in order to slow down, you have to care and have to do that. We're not going to take any extra time to do something if you don't care, right? So we have to start with that caring attitude. And I love this from Emmanuel. It says, promise yourself that you will do all that you can to avoid exasperation. Because let's think about it. We don't sit and judge and then feel good, right? The judgments we produce are not like, yes, I'm so happy and peaceful now that I've judged like everyone. We don't do that. Like, we usually feel a little not like good, right? And sometimes if we're really judging someone who's demonstrating some behavior that's probably not skilled, it can be exasperating if we're choosing an exasperation response. But what Emmanuel is saying is that if you maintain your serenity, you can analyze every event and every person in their respective place and position. Analyze from a place of maintaining serenity. Because, I mean, think about the last time you judged. It was probably less than 5 minutes ago, right? Were you like, relaxed in your serenity and no, right? When our minds are like, no. We're not doing this from a place of serenity. And this last thing, which I just love, he says, notice with a caring attitude all those who come your way. A caring attitude. So a caring attitude would be the precursor to the situational attribution, right? If I say, oh my gosh, Rafael, he's so grumpy today, gosh, he's just grumpy. Gosh, he's been grumpy a lot lately. He's just grumpy. So that's the personality attribution. Or I could say, wow, Rafael's been grumpy lately. I wonder what's going on with him at home. I wonder what's happening with work. I wonder if he needs a hug. Maybe I should give him a call. Maybe he wants to. Look.
He's grunting, we know exactly.
My body tells the truth all over me with that. Yeah, I definitely eat when I'm angry too. Get angry when I don't eat. But you see what I mean? But I have to stop and think about how much I care about him first. And that's not hard because you know what? I do care about Rafael. It's harder when you maybe don't. Then we have to dig a little bit deeper. So that's hard, and that's why we don't do it, right? So the thing is, we have to start the work somewhere. Where do we start the work, right? Because if a caring attitude was so easy, heck, we'd all be caring. This planet would be transformed. We'd be elevated, evolved, and off to the next part of, becoming a purified spirit, right? So this is obviously something for us to work on. So how do we start the work? Well, here's the thing. The work doesn't start with improving situational attributes. It starts with us, right? And we say we help each other. I think also in the prayer, why can't I say his name? Who said the prayer? Manny. The prayer that Manny said when he said that we're here to help each other. We're a loving family. We're here to help each other. So Cynthia, who I'm missing, and Cynthia, if you hear us, hey girl, I hope you come back soon. I love you. I miss you. She's, I've, thank you. So I've heard her say more than once, that we judge in other people what we can't accept in ourselves. And that's a little bit of a bitter medicine. That's a little nasty, especially if you think there's just a wee bit nasty, right? Because think about it. If everything that you've ever judged about everybody is in you, I'm going to stop and let that sink in. Anybody disagree with that? It's hard, right? That's some tough medicine to swallow. So I've been in the midst of this and struggling a little bit because I would like to think I'm so above it all. Really, I am, but I'm not. If there's something I see in you that I can call a flaw and begin to judge, that's because I know a little something about it. And the only way that I know something about it
Because you have to fall.
because I have it. And probably really big.
That's how she knew I was hurt.
I detect shade. I detect shade. So, many of you know that I lived in North Carolina before I moved here. And when I was in North Carolina, in addition to attending a Spiritist center there, I attended a Unity church, which is basically another type of Spiritism, right? And there's a Unity minister there that had a whole series on judgment, which was kind of what started my study. And he had this interesting idea that if we started the interrogation of our own judgments, the moment we notice we're judging someone, because the first thing is you kind of have to say, I'm going to notice when I'm judging. Because right now, we don't even have that filter installed. We just judge to the right, judge to the left, judge above, judge below, over there, or we just fling out judgments like they're free. Like you're breathing, right? Like you're breathing, like I'm breathing. So this suggestion that his name's Reverend Newsom Holmes. So what his suggestion was is that first you have to build the filter, like begin to notice when you're judging, and then to do something very simple. And that's to say this very simple affirmation to ourselves. The minute that we notice we're judging is to say, I accept myself completely, just the way that I am right now. Because that inability is what makes us unable to accept you completely, the way that you are right now. So humor me. Let's just say it together. I accept myself completely, just the way that I am right now. Again, I accept myself completely, just the way that I am right now. How does that feel? Just like notice what that feels like in our body. For some of us, we might not believe it, right? Who said it and doesn't believe it?
I didn't even say.
Okay. One more time. I accept myself completely, just the way I am right now. So affirmations are weird because they're an affirmation because it's helping us to create a new belief. But if it's a new belief, meaning we don't believe it yet, like where's that space in between saying it? But the mind is something that's very powerful. And if we repeat things to ourselves over and over, there, at some point it becomes in our subconscious, kind of like judgments. Judgments sit at our subconscious level. They happen without our conscious thinking. There's four frames of mastery of something. There's unconscious incompetence, when you don't know that you don't know something, right? Then there's conscious incompetence. I know this thing, but I know I'm not good at it. Like me in Portuguese, right? I know that I'm not good at Portuguese. I didn't know I wasn't any good at Portuguese until I started studying. Like didn't know. Follow. But then you get to a point where it's conscious competence. Like I practice, I work at it, I learn a new word. Like water's not room temperature, it's, agua sin gelo. When it's from the refrigerator, but I have to remember, okay, I have to be conscious about it. And then at some point, there's unconscious competence where you're good at it and you don't have to think about it. Like tying your shoes, right? Or driving your car. Sometimes the car just drives itself. We just judge without thinking about it. Right? We're just things that we do. But those things were trained. You didn't always know how to tie your shoes. You didn't always know how to drive a car. I didn't always know, the handful of words that I know. I had to take the time to study it, right? So think of it that way, that this is true about ourselves. We just need to study it. And the way that I've begun to learn my words of Portuguese is saying them over and over and practicing them with you all kind, patient, loving, wonderful people who don't tease me for my accent or poor grammar or anything like that. Because conjugating Portuguese verbs, my Lord, my Lord. Nós format, eu format, você format, eles format. Ai, ai, ai. Difícil. I'm sure English is worse, right? English is probably worse, so who am I fussing, right? All of us. So this is a simple affirmation that we can start to train ourselves to say, and maybe this doesn't work for you. Maybe there's another way you'd like to say it. Like I'm willing to accept myself in this moment, but something to affirm your goodness so that you don't have to steal someone else's through judgment, right? Because when we judge, we're stealing the goodness from the people that we're making these opinions about. I am stealing the goodness from the people that I love when I do this. And so there's some additional affirmations and mantras, and I just want to shout out to Carol. I think she left, but again, I want to keep shouting out every time someone here has helped me. I want to let you all know. So Carol, when I was in treatment, she was telling me the importance of affirmations. Like I was really struggling when I got here, really, really struggling. And she reminded me of the importance. Now I knew, but I had forgotten. And she reminded me, right? And said, when you take the time to listen to affirmations, this is an act of love for yourself. I was like, that's right, I knew that. Thank you for reminding me. So she reminded me. And so I began to do some searching. And so I found, I use this app called the Insight Meditation Timer. It's a free app. It just kind of helps me. It reminds me to meditate. And in the mediumship study we were just in, we're on chapter 9 of the domains or the realms of mediumship. And there was a talk we were having about when many minds are connected, how powerful that is, when you harmonize a multiple consciousness around a certain idea. In this app, when you meditate, it shows you lights all over like a globe, so you can see all the people that are meditating using the app at that time. Super helpful. And we know that more people are meditating than are actually using this app. So this helps you know, wow, right now I'm meditating. There are many people around the world that are meditating right now. And so I was looking for this, looking for some meditations, because they have guided ones and then the silent timer. And I usually prefer to do the silent ones. But after Carol recommended this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a good girl, do my homework. So I was looking for affirmations. And so this is so interesting. Not about a week or two before I was looking for that, this Raphael, like what 2 Raphaels and sitting 2 seats away, this Raphael had invited me to I remember I said I attended a Unity church. There's a Center for Spiritual Living, same thing, all just affirmative and it's the same message that we have here, to attend, and I hadn't had a chance to attend. But I did find on this app this wonderful gentleman who does these affirmations. His name is Skip Jennings. Looked him up online. It is the same guy that's the minister of the place Rafa was telling me to go. Now, what are the odds of that? Now, this is an international app. There are teachers from all over the globe, but the one I found was the place he told me to go. I mean, leave that right there. But I love this. I am a unique expression of the universe, exceptional and beautiful. I am love unleashed in its fullness. What if we started to say these things to ourselves? The minute we say, I wonder why so-and-so did that. I can't stand when... Pause. I am a unique expression of the universe, exceptional and beautiful. And we could turn around and say, they are a unique expression of the universe. They are exceptional and beautiful. They are love unleashed in its fullness. You know what? That wouldn't cost us a penny. It would be free. And we might actually get a good feeling, because, the whole judgment's not going to put us into, it's not going to put us into that serene state that we're trying to get. And then the director of the center in North Carolina had also turned me on to Nando Cordell. Anybody have heard of this album, the O Jardim da Minha Mente é Lindo? Anybody heard this? Nobody, raise your hand if you've heard of it. Only 2 of you must get it. It's a whole album of, this has actually helped my Portuguese tremendously too, but it's a whole album of nothing but mantras. So you hear a song, and here's what's good about that is the song does what? It gets stuck in your head, right? So, you're walking along and you're like, O jardim da minha mente é lindo, é lindo. Well, I could be thinking about how the garden of my mind is beautiful. Or I could be thinking, can't stand when so-and-so does that. Can't stand when so-and-so can't stand. Which one is going to make me feel good? Right? So here's the surface work. Now, there's some deeper work we can do. Oh, yeah. Oh. Yes, it's called the Insight Timer. It's free. It's on iOS and Android. I don't make any money off this. This is it's free app. It's called the Insight, INSIGHT, the Insight Meditation Timer. Such a great app. And it also tracks your data. So it says, you've meditated 7 days in a row for a total of 76 minutes, and it's pretty neat. Yeah. And it also has a social aspect, so you can make friends with people and you see, oh, I'm meditating with so-and-so right now. It's really nice. It's very, very inspirational. Now that's in supplement, of course, to we hope that you're all coming on Tuesday nights to the meditation that we have here, right? Because group meditation is also very powerful as well. Yeah, Insight, INSIGHT, like Insight. Insight Meditation Timer, yeah, or Insight Timer. It's such a, and there's like thousands of hours of guided meditations on there as well as affirmations, as well as Skip Jennings. And the Nando Cordell album is also on YouTube, and it's free. All right, so now let's talk about some deeper work. Anybody here ever heard of Byron Katie? Raise your hand if you've heard of Byron Katie. Just Luigi. Okay, Luigi. It's me and you. Okay, you've heard of Byron Katie as well? Yeah, in our gospel study on Thursday. Right. Yes. So yes. If you've so Byron Katie is this kind of American mystic that had an awakening, and her awakening was that she realized that in order to alleviate the suffering she was experiencing, she had to love what is, and that's the name of her book, Loving What Is. That's some medicine, isn't it? Because all of our judgment is about what? Not loving what is. All of our upset and suffering is about what? Not loving what is. So her supposition, she's positing that if we can love what is, we can find some peace. We have a copy of this book. Really? Okay. Yeah, I mean, you could just take this picture, right? The book is awesome, but really the work boils down to 4 questions. So I'm gonna show you what this looks like in reality. I'm gonna take Hafa and being grumpy. And the reason why I'm saying that is because he's the most non-grumpy person you would ever meet. So this is so ludicrous. And as you know, I've never seen you grumpy. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to find the most ludicrous example so that I'm not actually judging you, right? So I let's say that I've 2 days in a row I see Hafa and he's grumpy to me, which is like absolutely never happened. He's usually smiling and shiny, right? So when I say, God, he's just a grumpy person, because that's what we do, isn't it? We don't say, oh, what? Maybe we don't go straight to situational. We go straight for the character, right? He's just a grumpy person. If I'm doing the work, I would have to say, is that true? Is he a grumpy person? And I might say to myself, yes, because he just went to me. So yes, he's grumpy. But then I have to say, am I 100% sure that that's true? And then I would have to say, probably not, because most of the time I've seen him, he's pretty cool, which is why I can say, wow, he's grumpy now because you weren't before. So I can't 100% say that's just your character, you're just grumpy. But we do this. We don't even take the time to do this amount of analysis, right? So that's why this is called work, right? Am I 100% sure it's true? The third question is, well, how do I react when I think it's true? Well, I'm probably gonna see Rafael tomorrow. If I think he's grumpy, and if I go to greet him, he's gonna go, "Rrr." Do you think I'm gonna run up to him, hi, I'm so happy to see you. I'm like, he's grumpy, hey. Right, and then inside I'm gonna be like, but if he wasn't so grumpy, I would be nicer. I would give more of my love if I thought that he would. Come on now, we do this. This is the whole cycle we go through, right? And that reaction when I think it's true, you know what that's not producing in me? It's not producing peace. It's not producing joy. It's not producing a state of being I want to sit in for any reasonable length of time, right? And I don't know about y'all, I'm not here to be miserable. Like I don't come here to be miserable. I don't. I come here to feel better. I come here to feel good vibrations. I don't come here to be miserable. I'm assuming you all are, right? Nobody's here. Raise your hand if you're here to be miserable. Nobody, right? We're all here to feel good. So how do we react when we think it's true? It makes us miserable. We got to think about that. And the turnaround, right, we have to ask ourselves, lastly, who would I be without that thought? Well, if I saw Hafa tomorrow, which I will, and I didn't have the thought, he's just grumpy. When I see him, he's going to go, "Rrr." If I didn't have that thought, you know what I would do? Hey, Hafa. That's what I would do. And you know how that would feel? Good. Because that's what I'm here to do. That would feel lovely. Now look at the whole trip I just took through my mind, from a lazy response, a personality attribution, all the way to a caring attitude, right? And I might even hug and kiss him and be like, are you okay? It seems like you've been struggling a little bit. Do you need anything? You want to come over for dinner? Are you hungry? Right? You want me to save you a coxinha? Wait, what was that?
He might show up grumpy.
I know.
I have got you if you do. I have got you. I've got all the love in the world for you. Right? And then the turnaround. Here's where it really becomes work. The turnaround is it possible that the opposite is true? Is it possible that he's not grumpy at all? Is it possible that he's a delightful, loving, look at the face. I know I'm all over you today, Hop. I thank you for letting me use you today. But isn't that possible? Would you have a question?
No.
Yeah. But it's possible, right? The equally, I mean, pick the last judgment. I'm not even going to ask anyone to say it. But just think about the last thing you judged. Isn't it possible that the opposite is true? And on top of that, if I can say to myself, maybe Hoffa's not this grumpy curmudgeon, maybe he's just a delightful person, and there are things happening in his life. Then I can say, maybe I'm not a grumpy person, because don't I have to be kind of grumpy too in order to respond to him that way? I mean, the very character assassination, for me to, instead of saying, hey, and I go, he's just gonna be, what am I doing? The same thing like you, right? So the opposite possibility of the possibility of the opposite truth. Is it work? Yes. That's why she literally calls it the work. Her book's called Loving What Is, but these 4 questions, this body of work, if you Google Byron Katie and the work, you will get these 4 questions, right? So I'm not proposing that it's easy, but it is simple. It's not easy. It's work. But we're here to feel good, but nobody's here to relax either. I think we all know there's no free ride to evolution, right? We have to do the work.
There's already a lot of work to be grumpy, so.
Thank you. Could you say that again a little louder for people who may not have heard you? Say that again, please.
It's already a lot of work being grumpy, so.
Does anybody disagree with that? Is it already a lot of work to be grumpy? It is, right? It's what?
It's like taxing on your mind and your body.
Yes. Yes. Was there something in the back? Did you say something?
It's a lot of
It's a lot of energy.
energy. Waste of energy.
It's the same energy now we're not willing to spend to even transition from character attribution to situational attribution. But we're willing to, I'm not going to talk to Raphael because he's... That takes just to squinch. I mean, I have to squinch my shoulders up. I have to, shallow my breathing, my blood pressure's. I mean, I'm terrorizing my body and my soul to do that. Versus taking a few deep breaths and offering a caring attitude and a hug. My hugs don't cost a penny. Like, this is not even gonna hurt my pocketbook to hug him, right?
And the worst thing is contagious.
Say that again. What's contagious?
Your grumpiness, your energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I go, I don't want to talk to him. What about all the people that are watching me do this, right? They're seeing me, guess what they're thinking? I'm not going to hug her. She's grumpy. Right? All right, so towards the light. We're talking about judgment and light. If that work is too much work, we can always step towards the light by visualizing that person that we're judging completely involved in light. If we can't ask ourselves those 4 questions because it's too hard and it takes too much energy. If we can't develop a caring attitude because it's too hard and we're tired. If we can't offer situational attribution because we don't want to spend the extra time because we're tired. We're not too tired to judge, but we're too tired to do all that, right? If that's the case, we can literally just, in that moment when we notice that our mind is judging, just see that person in a field of light. That's it. Do you know how powerful that is? That is so powerful because we know that energy follows consciousness, right? Energy follows consciousness. That in and of itself is almost a form of a pass. That sends magnetism. That's a very, very powerful thing to do. And if this is difficult, try seeing them as a baby. Because the person may have really made you mad. Like they may have really engaged in a really unskilled behavior that really hurt your feelings. And your feelings are still hurt. And you want to forgive them, but you can't. And you don't want to do the work. And you don't want to have a caring attitude. And you don't want to give them situational attribution. And you can't even see them in light because all you see is that grown adult that did you dirty, right? See them as a baby. A little baby wrapped in a little blanket in light. Powerful stuff, right? This is how we can begin to get back into the light here. And if we can be intentional, right? This is another message from Emmanuel, is to intentionally scan for the good. Intentionally scan for the good in ourselves. I accept myself and love myself exactly the way that I am right now. I am a unique expression of the universe. I am love unleashed, right? Look for the good in ourselves. Look for the good in our environment. It's too hot in here. I don't like the floor. Oh, I wish my house were different. Like, we judge our environments too. Like, we have a litany of thoughts that are judgment. And in others, right? And that above all, this is what Emmanuel is saying, above all his other concerns, Jesus invariably sought the good in every situation and in every one. But to seek something, you have to be intentional. So we have to say to ourselves, I'm going to do this. We have to say to ourselves, doesn't feel good anymore. We have to say to ourselves, do I like how I feel when I'm judging? And we have to say to ourselves, when I look for the good, how do I feel? If you see someone, you're like, I'm so happy to see you. Or, he's probably going to be grumpy today. We have to begin to be intentional about looking for the good, right? We have an example for that. And then the other thing I think is important for us is to think about benevolence, right? And benevolence is one of those words I had to go look up. So benevolence means kindness and goodwill. And goodwill is highlighted because for those of you that are magnetizers, you know that's the first step in magnetism, right? Is to have goodwill, right? Is to have goodwill. So goodwill and kindness together is benevolence. That's when we can have the caring attitude. And I love what this, again, this is the same message from Elizabeth DeFrance. She says, the sublime charity taught by Jesus also consists in the benevolence always granted in all things towards your neighbor. Not benevolence sometimes granted in just a few things whenever I feel like it and I'm not tired. It's benevolence always granted in all things towards your neighbor. And this charity is not for people who need money, right? It's not for those who do not need alms, but who words of love, consolation, and encouragement will lead to the Lord. Because I guarantee you, if I say, Rafael, I would hug you, but you're grumpy. Sorry. Where is that leading me? Is that leading me to a path of peace, right? Is that offering him consolation? Is that gonna make him feel better, right? Versus the offer a hug, the coxinha or whatever, right? I'm using Rafael, but could you all just in your mind replace Rafael with the person you're annoyed with right now? Because all of us are annoyed with someone, right? Like just replace my joking with my brother here with who you're really annoyed with, right? And what might it be if we offered some consolation and encouragement, some kindness and some goodwill, right? And it starts with offering our best. By the way, this book, Living Spring, people have heard of this book, Living Spring? I love this book because every morning I have it on my phone, and then I also have the paper book. But what I do every morning, one of the first things I do before I start digging in my phone is to just randomly open it and read a message. And no matter what, the message is reading me for filth for something I need to be paying attention to, right? It's a good message. So all of the little excerpts have been things that I've screenshotted over the last couple weeks as I knew I was going to do this talk. So it says, let us seek the Lord offering the best of ourselves to others. Not the worst of ourselves, not the little bit here we go again, part of ourselves, right? But the best of ourselves. And if we took the time to offer the best of ourselves, instead of looking for the worst in other people, what would happen? It's a question for us to think about. It's a worthy experiment. It's worth trying. So as we get ready to close, two more things to think about. One is becoming a helper. So Luigi, a couple of weeks ago, you gave a talk about this, right? I think the title of your talk was Jesus, Savior, or I forget what the rest of the title was, but the message, the entirety of what I felt Luigi's message was, is that how important it is to help people, right? To help. Savior or inspiration. Yes, that. Thank you. Thank you for helping me with that, right? But helping people, that's why I was real intentional about saying, like Cynthia helped me with remembering that, we judge in others like what we feel in ourselves. Carol reminded me how important it is to have affirmations, right? Or Rafael reminded me of, told me about a place to go that turned out to be a place with great affirmations. Like, this is why we don't know when we help each other what the outcome is going to be. We don't know that it's going to could change someone's life. And it's certainly going to change yours because you'll be a lot nicer and a lot more at peace if you're the one who's doing the helping. We know there's tons of service opportunities here. And we can also help through the narratives we create. Because if I have to think to myself, Rafael is grumpy, You know what else I'm going to do? When I get here, I'm going to be like, don't talk to Raphael because he's grumpy. You know how we do, right? We don't like to keep our judgments to ourselves. We don't want to keep it quiet. We share because we're generous, right? I mean, I'm outing myself here. I'm sure I'm not the only one that does this, right? That's what we do. Because sometimes our judgments are juicy and we want to tell people, yeah, got a minute? Can I talk to you for a minute? Guess what? Right? But Dale Carnegie is an American kind of motivational speaker and like management consultant. He's has transitioned quite some time ago, but he had a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that book, he had the part of that was give people, give your brother. He says give people, but give your brother a good reputation to live up to. So that's the opposite. So that could be me saying, I can see Hafa's a little grumpy today. Instead, I'd be like, have you seen Hafa today? Why don't you go give him a hug? You know, he's a good person that could probably use a hug today. Or do you have some extra food in your bag? Right? You know, go check out my good, right? Right? And this is how we can get ourselves into the light. So this is the last message, in which I just think is so important, right? That, again, in Living Spring, in the chapter, You Are the Light, that he says, you are the light of the world. We all have heard this, right? You are the light of the world. Our master has exhorted us. And the light doesn't argue, but it clarifies, aids, helps, and illuminates. So what if we spent our time finding the light within us? This is never about the other person, it's us, right? Finding the light within us and using it to find the light in others. What if we did that? That would be a worthy use of our time. So that is what I had for you today. Thank you so much for listening.